So I'll tell you right now, you're not going to be able to achieve incredibly high grades if you're not consistent. Or you might be able to, but you'd be making things far harder for yourself than you need to. And it's why I try to steer students away from this idea of studying crazy hours every day. I've coached students that were studying 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they were getting really incredibly high grades. I mean in the top 0.1% of their university. But the problem was that their other areas of their life suffered. But that's not the only problem. Burnout is a real issue. In the real world in general, I mean, burnout is a really common issue, but it's especially common among high performance students. So then my question is, how do you become a high performance student without burning out in the long run? And I'm going to answer that in this lesson. So consistency is huge, but it's not easy to achieve. Our motivation throughout the week goes up and down. And some days we'll feel motivated, some days we won't. And that's completely normal. But what I encourage the students that I coach to do is to keep your studying on a consistent level every day, because there's two different approaches you can take. Approach one is you're feeling super motivated on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, so you get so much of your studying done. You average 8 hours a day over the 3 days, but then you start to burn out for the rest of the week, so you don't study at all for the rest of the week. That's approach one. Approach two is you're feeling super motivated on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, but you steady your pace because you know that this is a marathon and not a sprint. So you pace yourself, you study on average, 6 hours a day over the 3 days. And then the rest of the week, you feel unmotivated, but you have a goal of 6 hours a day to study. So you push through it and you study 6 hours on Friday and Saturday too. And then you have the weekend off to recharge. So the idea behind approach two is you have a goal of studying 6 hours a day from Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday. Studying 6 hours when you're super motivated is incredibly easy, right? Everyone can do it, but studying 6 hours when you're unmotivated and you're tired, it's not that easy, but it's not impossible. And with a bit of self-discipline and implementing some really clever study strategies, studying these 6 hours when you're feeling unmotivated is just about achievable. And that's why I really recommend spacing out your studying rather than going all out and studying crazy hours for a few days or a few weeks, but then burning out. This analogy of running a marathon rather than a sprint is a really good way of explaining it. If you're running a marathon, then you don't sprint the fastest you can for the first 1,000 meters, right? Because you'd burn out pretty quickly. You need to pace yourself. And I really want to encourage studying smart and studying hard, but in a way that is healthy and sustainable. So that means sleeping well. It means exercising regularly, eating healthily, resting when you need to rest, taking breaks, that kind of thing. Because I think this mentality of push yourself to the absolute limit every single day, it's good short term, and of course you should push yourself hard, but just make sure that you're studying at a level where you can stay consistent. So how do you stay consistent? How do you make sure that the level that you're studying at right now, you don't burn out and you stay consistent, even when you feel unmotivated or tired? There are a few things that you can do. Firstly, having a consistent and productive morning routine is super important. So I've designed my morning routine to be as healthy and productive as possible, but at the same time making it as efficient as I can. The morning is the most productive part of my day. So instead, I've created a morning routine that will get me out of the door and be on my way to the office within 55 minutes of waking up. So at 7 a.m. I wake up. I don't wake up super early at 4 or 5 a.m. anymore, but at university I used to wake up at 4:45 a.m. religiously every single morning. It worked for me then, but with the businesses that I run now, and also with the time zones, I'm living in Vietnam now, I have to make calls or Zoom meetings to the UK who are 6 hours behind Vietnam. Sometimes I'll be making calls until midnight or the early hours of the morning. At 8:15 I drink a glass of water, at 8:20 I have breakfast, at 8:35 I check my schedule for the day. Usually I use Trello to organize my workday, and I also have a calendar app on my phone that organizes any appointments or meetings or events I have. At 8:40 I shower and I get ready, and at 8:55 I leave the house. This morning routine, for me at least, works perfectly and makes sure that my mornings are super productive and are consistent. So I start the day off strong every single day. Now, some people are early birds, others are night owls. I personally am at my most productive in the morning. So I make sure that my morning routine is on point and I'm sat at my desk in front of my laptop as early as I can. Maybe you're a night owl and you're the most productive at nighttime or the early mornings, in which case you have a productive nighttime routine that you go through where you make sure that you're sat at your desk ready to study at 6 p.m. or 7 to 8 p.m. or whatever time that you're most productive. The second way that I stayed super consistent at university was that I set goals. I had a goal of studying 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, from Monday to Saturday, and on Sunday I'd study just 4 hours in the morning. So I could have had that goal at 10 hours or 11 hours and really pushed myself, but I'd probably burn out after a few hours, and that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. 8 hours was perfect for me. When I'm feeling super pumped and motivated, 8 hours of studying is really easy. But when I'm feeling unmotivated or tired or just having a bit of a slow day, studying for 8 hours with a healthy dose of self-discipline was still achievable. So my studying stayed consistent throughout the week. 8 hours a day as opposed to 12 hours some days, 4 hours other days. I kind of saw it like having a full-time job. And that's where my mindset was. Most white collar workers, they work at least 8 hours a day. And if they're feeling tired or having a particularly bad day, they can't just call their boss at work and tell them that they're not coming to work today because they can't really be bothered, right? That just isn't an option in the real world. And people that do that perhaps wouldn't have that job for very long. And honestly, I did have a bit of a head start because when I was young, all the way up to my early 20s, I saw my dad go to work every single morning at about 7 or 8 a.m. and come home every single night at about 6 p.m. He would never have a day off. And I mean, really, he would never have a day off. And he was kind of like my role model that became normal for me. Now, it's slightly harder at university because we're not going to get fired if we don't turn up to study, right? If we just study for 4 hours instead of 8 hours, we're not going to have a manager breathing down our neck asking why we only studied for 4 hours. So really, we have to be our own manager. We have to be incredibly self-disciplined enough that we make ourselves study and stay consistent with our studying even when we don't feel like it, because that's just life. Sometimes we have to do something that we don't particularly want to do. We want that immediate gratification of hitting the snooze button or turning on Netflix instead of studying. But that's just not what a high-performance student does. A high-performance student trains themselves to be self-disciplined and be consistent because, trust me, it's so worth it. And if you have any questions about this lesson, maybe you need some further guidance or support, just let me know below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.